You don't become the quantum field by escaping yourself. You become it the moment you stop resisting what you already are. Everything you've ever called awakening was never about climbing higher. It was about dissolving the distance between who you think you are and the light that's been breathing through you all along. Tonight, you're not just hearing words, you're entering a field that's already listening. Welcome to Quantum Quest, where consciousness becomes the experiment. The moment you become the field. You don't arrive at this moment by trying to be special. You arrive because something ordinary finally becomes honest. The breath feels like yours again. The room quiets not because the world changed, but because you stopped negotiating with it. The need to prove, to convince, to be chosen burns out like a tired star, and what's left is a very simple pulse, presence. If you listen closely, you can hear a hum behind everything familiar: your name, your plans, your history, all of it resting on a frequency you've always felt but rarely trusted. In that hum there isn't a promise of power or a shortcut to transcendence. There is only a recognition, like remembering a face you've known all your life yet couldn't place until now. The face is yours, but not the one in mirrors. It's the face the universe wears when it looks through you. Most seekers begin by collecting explanations. They want to map the invisible. They want the field on a blueprint. But the quantum field never offers a diagram. It offers a relationship. It meets you as you are and echoes the tone you hold. The very first hint that you're crossing a threshold is that you stop making requests and start making room. You don't try to raise your vibration like lifting weights. You allow your system to put down what's heavy. You don't chase alignment. You remove what stands between you and the alignment already present. People imagine becoming the field, like stepping into a different dimension with brighter colors and perfect timing. The truth is subtler and more intimate. The field has never been somewhere else. It's the context for every breath you've ever taken. The last veil is not outside you. It's the story that says you are only the body having experiences. The moment that story loosens, you feel it. Attention opens from a point into a presence. Awareness no longer sits behind your eyes. It surrounds your life like sky. What changes first is not what you see, but how you see. Complaints lose their anchor. The mind's favorite loops don't stick. The nervous system, once trained to brace, tests a different habit: trust. And from that trust, your reality begins to behave like a clear mirror. Not kinder to flattery, not harsher to fear, just precise. You notice that every interaction returns to you the music you're playing. That recognition doesn't inflate your ego, it makes you gentle. You don't need to manage outcomes because you can manage tone. Becoming the field is not an escape from being human. It's the moment being human finally includes the rest of you. The hypothesis your body already knows. Here's the claim, stripped down to its living core. Reality is participatory, and your baseline state participates more than your passing thoughts. What you consistently feel becomes the instruction your biology transmits into the fabric of this moment. That instruction is not a wish list, it's a frequency profile: order or noise, coherence or fragmentation, signal or static. The field does not read your words, it reads your rhythm. And rhythm is not an idea. Rhythm is breath, heart, attention, and honesty moving together. We inherit a subtle superstition that the mind sits on a throne and the body obeys. But if you've ever calmed a spiraling day with 1 minute of slow, unforced breathing, you already know the throne is a circle, not a chair. Physiology and awareness talk in both directions. Your nervous system is not a fence around consciousness. It's a bridge. When fear becomes the language your body speaks, your world translates it faithfully. When safety becomes the tone, the same world reorganizes without drama. This doesn't mean people and events are puppets of your preference. It means the deep pattern you hold, the one beneath performance, organizes how probability meets you. That's why the same advice, the same opportunity, the same room will be a battlefield for one person and a doorway for another. The difference isn't intelligence or luck, it's baseline coherence. Coherence is not perfection, it is integrity. Your inner signals agree about what matters. Your attention is not pulled into 1,000 negotiations. In coherence, life is not easier, it is cleaner. You don't stop meeting challenges, you stop arguing with them. You don't have to believe any metaphysical claim to test this. Notice the quality of your perception after 10 breaths, that you actually feel, not perform. Notice how conversation changes when your chest softens by 2 millimeters. Notice how timing improves when you drop the impulse to rush. The hypothesis your body already knows is that alignment is efficient. Truth spends less energy than pretense. Presence is cheaper than control. And the field responds to economy, like nature responds to gravity with inevitability. The biology of a clear signal. If you could watch the body when it feels safe, you would see an orchestra finding tempo. The heart's rhythm stabilizes into patterns that look like music instead of Morse code. The breath trades sharp corners for arcs. Neural chatter thins just enough for insight to be audible. Hormones stop writing emergency memos and return to maintenance. Your cells aren't listening to a speech, they are listening to cadence. When the cadence steadies, message traffic becomes intelligible. The system spends less time defending, more time repairing, learning, and creating. A clear internal signal is not made from spiritual bravado. It is made from small fidelities repeated until they become normal. Drink water before opinions. Feel the exhale before conclusions. Choose honest words before clever ones. Each small fidelity frees a pocket of energy and returns it to the whole. The cumulative effect isn't mystical, it's architectural. The house hums because all the lights aren't flickering. People ask for techniques, as if technique alone could outrun the tone that uses it. But biology is not fooled by ambition. If you practice stillness to secure advantage, the body hears strain. If you rest to remember yourself, the body hears safety. Safety is not a slogan, it is an electrical consequence. In safety, the vagus nerve signals permission. Muscles release their silent negotiations with the future. The immune system stops spending all its currency on alarms. Creativity is not a luxury. It is what returns when you're not constantly paying interest on fear. There is a reason why joy seems to multiply events, and frustration compacts them. Joy doesn't erase friction, it changes the viscosity of experience. You move through what you must with less drag. That is not magical thinking, it's the physics of a system in order. Coherence reduces turbulence. Reduced turbulence lowers internal cost. Lower cost increases capacity. Increased capacity looks like grace. The body knows the difference between a performance of calm and the absence of hostility toward your own feelings. It rewards the latter. When emotion is allowed to move without a courtroom, circuitry opens. When you replace argument with attention, the signal clarifies. The field does not need you to be saintly, it needs you to be congruent. And congruence is the simplest biology of all. One truth, shared by breath, heart, and speech. Ancient language for a modern nerve. Long before we tracked heart rhythms on screens, someone sat under a tree and named the stillness that makes seeing possible. They said things like, as within, so without. They spoke of a way that doesn't struggle to be the way. They told stories about light folded into form, about the invisible thread that stitches fate to character, cause to consequence, sound to creation. Listen past the poetry, and you will hear a manual for nervous systems. As within, so without is not a mystical threat. It is a mirror policy. Coherence here, clarity there. Turbulence here, static there. Not as punishment, but as accurate translation. The Tao that can be talked into being isn't the Tao, because speech often tries to command what only tone can carry. The Gita's quiet insistence on action without clinging is nervous system hygiene move, but stop bribing the future. Even the oldest prayers feel like instructions for remembering rhythm. Soften the chest, see what remains, answer from that. When old texts speak of light, they point to what feels self-evident when your system settles. Awareness glows. The world seems backlit from within. Edges soften not because details blur, but because hostility recedes. In that light, discernment doesn't slice, it reveals. Right action is not a calculation. It's the next true step the body can take without splitting itself. You don't need sanctuaries to find this. You need honesty, sturdy enough to feel what you feel and not turn it into confession or defense. What is new about right now is not the truth. It's our access to it in ordinary rooms, on ordinary days, with ordinary language. The field does not ask you to become a poet. It asks you to stop outsourcing your sanity to a later date. The oldest wisdom, stripped of symbol, becomes practical engineering. Turn down internal noise, signal gets through. Turn up internal war, signal fragments. This is why humility wins. It emits less interference. It lets the field finish your sentences. The conversation you've been having all along. If you've ever walked into a room and felt the room before a single word was spoken, you've already practiced this language. If you've ever known something wasn't for you without evidence and later watched the evidence arrive, you've already tuned to this station. The conversation between you and the field didn't begin tonight. It has been continuous. Tonight you are simply deciding to stop talking over it. When you stop narrating everything you feel, feeling does its job. Joy doesn't ask to be posted. Grief doesn't need an excuse to be present. Both carry information the mind cannot calculate. Where you truly stand, what you really value, what is safe to open, and what requires patience. Emotional honesty does not sabotage momentum. It calibrates momentum to something sustainable. Exaggeration impresses fewer people than you think and confuses the only partner that matters, your biology. There is a humility in admitting that your best thinking, when rehearsed under stress, becomes an echo chamber. Life wants to speak to you at the volume you can hear. Sometimes it's a pattern of delays. Sometimes it's the person who unnerves you because they insist on telling the truth you've outgrown. Sometimes it's the silence that doesn't punish, just refuses to collude. When you treat these as messages rather than enemies, your day stops being a courtroom and becomes a classroom. If you ask, "How do I know I'm not making this up?" the answer is unromantic. The result is cleaner. Not easier in every way, but free of the residue that follows self-betrayal. Your decisions stop requiring damage control. Your body clocks less overtime. Your timing improves without a lecture. You will still miss cues sometimes. You will still be human. But you won't confuse noise with guidance as often, because you felt the difference and chose the tone that returns you to yourself. You don't have to graduate into enlightenment. You practice a shorter distance between realization and honesty. The field all meets you at that distance every time. Emotion is how you write the instructions. Think of emotion as ink that dries quickly. You don't need paragraphs, you need clarity. The field does not pass your arguments. It reads the signature you hold long enough to matter. If your baseline is resentment covered by politeness, the signal is conflict. If your baseline is excitement covered by cynicism, the signal is ambivalence. Ambivalence manifests as noise. Mixed results, half doors, almosts. Clarity manifests as clean yes or clean no. Both are mercies. Emotion is not a liability to be managed by clever narratives. Emotion is current, it moves the system. Suppressed, it short circuits. Acknowledged, it becomes usable voltage. The myth that you must be endlessly positive breeds spiritual anemia and counterfeit calm. False calm is expensive. It costs you access to the exact power that would move the needle, unforced truth, fully felt and allowed to complete its circuit. Here is what happens when you stop interrupting that circuit. Fear appears as the body's proposal to protect you. You listen, you breathe, you check the facts. If danger is real, you move. If danger is historical, you thank the messenger and update the file. The current continues. Anger appears as a boundary. You don't decorate it, you express it cleanly, without poison. The current continues. Grief appears as a reorganization of attachment. You bow to the fact of endings without turning yourself into the tragedy. The current continues. What remains after completion is not emptiness, it's available power. The field doesn't reward bravery because it looks noble. It responds to the integrity bravery creates. Integrity has a sound your body recognizes, steady, undecorated, without a sales pitch. When you learn to sit in the rawness of what you feel without turning it into a performance or a weapon, your system stops wasting voltage and starts transmitting signal. That signal is not, give me what I want. It is, let what is true organize. The difference is everything. One demands compliance, the other invites coherence. Coherence scales. 7 subtle levers that change everything. There are levers so small that the mind overlooks them because they don't look dramatic enough to count. Yet these levers move the entire architecture of your day. The first lever is breath with attention, not counted, not gamified, felt. Attention rides the exhale like a leaf rides a river. When attention goes where breath goes, scattered processes unify. You aren't controlling life, you're removing the grit from its gears. The second lever is honesty about cost. Every posture you maintain has a price. Performing okayness costs stamina. Arguing with reality costs hours you'll need later. The moment you admit the actual cost, economics returns. You stop spending yourself on debts that never reduce. The third lever is small promises kept. Not visions, not vows to the universe, simple agreements you can honor when nobody is watching. Drink water, make the call, send the apology, walk 10 minutes. The body trusts what it can count. Trust compounds into permission. Permission expands capacity. The fourth lever is clean boundaries stated early. Boundaries late are border wars. Boundaries early are navigation. The field doesn't need you to please everyone. It needs you to stop broadcasting yes while living no. The fifth lever is reverence for limits. Limits are not moral failures, they're physics. The voltage you can carry today is the voltage you can carry today. Respecting that prevents outages. Curiously, reverence for limits grows them. The sixth lever is choosing repair over performance. When rupture happens, you don't protect the mask. You repair the relationship, especially with yourself. Repair returns you to signal faster than any heroic pose. The seventh lever is quiet. Not as a reward at the end of productivity, but as the condition that makes sane productivity possible. Quiet is not the absence of sound, it's the absence of war. In quiet, you notice the next right action without theatrics. You don't need omens, you need room. These levers don't impress your ego, they free your channel. Tiny adjustments at the root change the math of a life. The field is exquisitely sensitive to math. The disappearance of the middleman. At some point, the practice you've been calling spirituality stops needing a brand. You realize the middleman was never God, never fate, never the teacher who speaks beautifully of surrender. The middleman was your habit of outsourcing authority to anything more glamorous than the truth in your chest. When that habit dissolves, the sacred does not vanish, it becomes obvious. The field is intimate, or it is nothing. You don't need to argue with anyone's cosmology to live this. You simply notice that when you honor the tone of your own system, reality behaves like a partner instead of an obstacle. Your choices stop feeling like auditions and start feeling like handwriting. You sign your day with the same honesty you bring to your breath, and the day returns the signature not always with agreement, but with unmistakable clarity. The disappearance of the middleman means your feedback loops shorten. You learn faster because the lesson arrives unfiltered by fantasy. Old motivations retire. You stop chasing spiritual experiences as evidence because the evidence is how you walk into a room, how you leave a conversation cleaner than you found it, how you navigate uncertainty without spending tomorrow's courage. The mundane becomes sacramental, not as a posture, but as the accurate description of a life where war has lost glamour. What replaces the middleman is not a doctrine, it is participation. Participation means you show up with your actual bandwidth and give it fully to the moment at hand. You listen to the body, you answer what the moment asks, not what your script demands. You adjust without self-betrayal. This is the ordinary miracle. The world is suddenly workable because you stopped insisting it be applause. The paradox that ends the chase. The last chase ends when you accept this paradox. You cannot become the field because you have never been anything else. Becoming is the experience time gives to recognition. Recognition is instantaneous. Integration is human. The paradox unknots the compulsion to earn what is already true and replaces it with the quiet discipline of living like it's true when habit forgets. You stop bargaining for grace and begin budgeting for it. You allocate time for the breath that resets you, space for the grief that's smarter than your plans, margin for the conversation that changes a life because you were not in a hurry to be clever. You measure success by how little self-betrayal your day required. You count miracles not by spectacle but by cleanliness, the apology that removed poison, the boundary that prevented corrosion, the decision that let you sleep. There is tenderness in this paradox because it makes everyone a beginner again. You can't compete for what you already are. You can only practice remembering. The practice is not glamorous enough to sell easily. It is, however, unstoppable. The field does not grade you on mysticism. It tracks your fidelity to what your system knows when it's not afraid. That fidelity rearranges probability like tides rearrange shorelines slowly, then suddenly. The secret teachers turn out to be quiet breath, water, attention, the friend who tells the uncomfortable truth without flinching, the body that refuses to fake it. You listen to them and discover that transcendence was never away from humanity. It was humanity, restored to dignity. The final stage of awakening isn't a summit, it's sobriety. You stop hallucinating separation. You walk home through a world that never stopped reflecting you, and because you're no longer offended by the mirror, you can use it. The transmission, you came here to remember. Take one breath as if the field breathes with you. Let it be unremarkable. Let it be yours. Then listen to the sentence your life has wanted to say from the beginning. You are not a small animal begging a large universe for permission. You are a precise expression of the universe testing how clearly it can sing through a human nervous system. The assignment has always been coherence, not purity, not spectacle, coherence. You don't need to make vows tonight. You need to make room. Make room for the honest emotion that ends pretense. Make room for the conversation that repairs what performance damaged. Make room for the version of you that handles power responsibly because it no longer has anything to prove. Make room for quiet, not because quiet is holy, but because you hear better when you stop shouting at yourself. If you feel the ordinary warmth in your chest, that is not sentiment, that is signal. That is the system acknowledging the truth and reallocating voltage toward it. Reality will cooperate with that allocation, not by removing your humanity, but by dignifying it. You will still pay bills and tell the truth and disappoint a few people who preferred your old noise. You will also sleep more deeply, choose more cleanly, and watch improbable timing become common, because order attracts order. There will be days you forget. On those days, don't perform remembrance. Practice it. Return to the smallest lever you can reach. Breathe, drink, walk. Name what is true without assigning blame. Orient to the next honest action. The field is not counting your errors. It's listening for your tone. When the tone is coherent, the mirror clears. When the mirror clears, you recognize the face that has been looking through your eyes the whole time. This is the moment you become the quantum field, not by leaving your life, but by letting your life be inhabited by what you are. Not by winning enlightenment, but by ending the argument that said you were ever separate from it. If you needed a sign, take this one. The smallest true step reorganizes more reality than the most dramatic performance ever could. Take that step now. Let the field finish the math. This is Quantum Quest, where consciousness becomes the experiment.